911. What are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man or something. It looks like a man. I don't know what it was. Just that it ran across the yard.
Okay. You've had problems in the neighborhood before?
Yeah, my dog was killed here just recently. Jesus Christ, you better...
Sure.
Dio!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh. Okay, hang on.
He's right...
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me.
Okay.
You're listening to Sasquatch Experience, the podcast. The classic Bigfoot podcast has returned with Sean Forker and Henry May. The show starts now. Oh, here we go live, guys. And good evening. Welcome to the Sasquatch Experience. I'm Sean the Fork Chop Forker. That's Vance Nesbitt. That's Henry May. And our guest tonight, Shannon LeGro. We love to have Shannon
open the doors
on the show. Vance is terrible this evening. He's been drinking a little bit.
No, I'm not drinking.
Cheers. Here's the swimming with bow-legged women. There we go. So
yes,
Jaws reference for those of you who are inept and classless.
Look, tonight, I'm sorry, but this is anti-COVID right here.
It is, and we need all that we can get.
It works, guys.
It does. We got a great show tonight. We're doing this live here. We got some people on already. Guys, thanks for being here tonight late on a Friday. And Shannon, thank you for coming on with us.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it. Our favorite
I want to talk Bigfoot.
You can talk whatever you want. It's partially your show, but it's mine first. So,
ooh.
See how that I got to lay down the law. I'm the boss. Hey, look at Henry. He's sticking the fingers up at people. I told you about that, Henry. Behave yourself.
Don't worry, Henry. You're fine. I'm good with that.
There is a little bit of a delay with Henry, guys, so bear with us as we get used to that. He's from the South, and things are a little slower. Sorry. I had to get that out. I'm sorry, Henry. We love you. Anyhow, we just have to bear with us just a little bit as we get that situation go. But Shannon, thanks so much for coming on. It's been a while since we talked on air last, and what's new?
I mean, besides all the craziness in the world, just, plugging along. Besides the first two books that are out, we are currently working on Beyond the Fray Bigfoot 2. So,
nice.
Oh, wait, let me get the bunny ears in the right place. Yeah, 2. So, dose it. Oh, this thing. There we go. So, yeah, that's what's new. And then, still just doing Into the Fray every week and enjoying all the creepy, amazing stories that are coming in. So, yeah, doing well.
Yeah, well, Into the Fray, of course, one of my favorite podcast radio shows. I don't know what we call ourselves anymore. Internet streaming forums. And I love the work you do over there. Keep it going, because the day you end I'm going to have to retire again because I won't be able to handle it.
Let me know when you get tired. I mean, we may get tired at the same time. You just never know about these things.
We don't know. Vance is already threatened retirement.
Yeah, they say any press is good press, and some people have come in and out of things, and they claim that's the way to go. That's the way to get more listeners. Is you create a little drama around things, right?
I've been going steady since 2006. I ain't stopping anytime soon.
That's right, baby.
Well, I'll throw my kudos out there to the fact that for every episode that you started from episode 1, I have not missed any. So, thank you to me.
Are you talking to myself or to?
I know. I'm actually speaking to Into the Fray Radio.
Oh, I thank you, sir.
No, I'm not looking for thanks. It's the content. It's all about the content, and of course, Into the Fray Radio is not just revolving around the big hairy fella himself. It's everything that's unusual and paranormal and strange experiences that can't be explained. Yeah. And that opens up a whole new venue of not being bored with it, which is why I find myself compelled listening to every episode, because it's something new every time.
Well, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that. Yeah, as something that Will Jevning calls an underwear changing moment in relation to Bigfoot. I think that you just sometimes things fall into your lap and you just have to record them, and it's not always a Bigfoot story that becomes an underwear changing moment. And that's why I love to do what I do and get some of these stories that haven't been heard anywhere before. So I love doing that.
No,
well, you've done a good job compiling them into the book Beyond the Fray Bigfoot, and you said you got the second one coming out, which is just amazing because I've been working on a book for the last 12 years, and one day I'll publish it. But you have got a great platform to do this now with Beyond the Fray Publishing. You've really jumped into not just radio, but kind of all forms of media. You're sort of taking over. You're going to be like the Howard Stern of the paranormal.
Oh, I do love Howard. I really do, because I'm just that kind of a demented gal, I guess. People look at me a little funny sometimes. They're like, aren't you supposed to be offended by him? I'm like, no, I love him. But yeah, so part of the reason that, Beyond the Fray works so well is because I have a great partner in it, and that is, of course, best-selling author G. Michael Hoff. And, of course, I would call him a prolific author. He's got over 40 books out there and counting, of course, because in the background, he's still not only working on our, books with me, but he's helping other authors as well. So yeah, G. Michael Hoff, if you especially like post-apocalyptic, hey, I said it right that time.
Yeah.
And, kind of the end of days stuff and also Westerns, he's really into that genre. So, look him up. He's got separate stuff besides what he's working with me on for Beyond the Fray.
Do you know what I hate about all of this is the fact that I've tried writing. Sean and I had this conversation before we went live. I've got 2/3 of a book done, and this was 2 years ago. I don't know how you guys do it. I have no idea how that commitment works, but kudos to all of you.
Well, let's talk about the process, Shannon. How did you do it?
It wouldn't have happened without Jeff and without his encouragement and, sometimes prodding. And it's definitely kind of okay, tag, you're it. Let's here's your part, do it. And it helps to have that deadline. And the same as it is to go to a gym and have a personal trainer and you have somebody kind of with cattle prod right there or, calling you names. It helps, get your lazy ass working. Let's go. And it does help you. It really does. Because it's not like I hadn't had the idea to write a book, of course, and take the content, you put it into writing. Sounds really simple. It is definitely not. So when he came forward and he said, hey, I listen to the show. I love the show. You got a lot of content there that would be great in book format. And I was like, I think it's time to do this. And so it's been a fantastic partnership, and I'm very happy I did it. And we were going to do all exclusive flasher. We were going to do a different subject matter for book 3. But, I mean, let's face it, Bigfoot's kind of sort of basically my favorite thing, and it just made more sense to go ahead and do a second Bigfoot book after Paramalgamation. So, except for this round, I would really like to focus on getting even more stories that you're not going to hear, at least on the main show. If they're insider episodes, fine. If people want to come on, privately with me, if you want to email your stories, if you want to record into your phone into MP3 and send it to me. I really would like to have even more stories that are not even out there for public consumption, that you're gonna get that book, you're gonna read it for the first time right then and there and learn of it right then and there. So that's the goal.
What I liked about the book is that they're not stories that I've read in any other book. And that happens a lot in this world that we're in because publicly, even though there are a lot of reports and encounters out there, they're not always complete. And when that material is out there and it is recyclable, sometimes it's easy to pick that and put it in and have that fit whatever, kind of chapter or topic you're talking about as an example or a piece to it. Beyond the Fray Bigfoot didn't do that. I really appreciated that. It was fresh and original. And I haven't heard all the Bigfoot episodes, so like reading it in print and being able to see some of those stories was really cool. And I don't know about you guys, but reading something in the middle of the night or, dark and stormy, the atmosphere, reading it kind of makes it a little bit more tangible. you're in a different part of your mind when you're in it. So Bigfoot did that for me, Shannon. It was a great book. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, you definitely hit it on the head there, because I think there's a difference between listening to a podcast in your car during the day, you're driving to work. I mean, it's great. Of course, it's part of your routine. I mean, part of my routine, of course, at this point is actually listening to my buddy Howard every single day, when I'm in the car. And now I have the habit of even listening at home. So I probably have a slight addiction to that. However, yes, there's a huge difference between you're laying in bed, it's all quiet, and then you're reading a creepy story, because it tends to stay in your head a little bit better and maybe mess with you a little bit more. And maybe that's the whole point of the thing.
And it's also a nanosecond of time to reread something you may not have absorbed completely the first time when you have a book. Right. That's the big difference for me, is that I can immediately jump back instead of having to scroll that back in an audio format.
Right.
And then you can take a different interpretation. Yeah. So, you know what? As far as I'm concerned, the books will always remain a very essential part of consuming an educational format. I'll put it to you that way. And I love having a book. I absolutely love having a book, because you know what? It's tangible. I can hold it. I can carry it with me. So
yeah, but you won't tell the listeners and the viewers right now what you were doing to that book before we went on live.
No, because I found it in a dumpster. That's what it was.
Yeah. So you just happened across this book. You're like, wait, I think I know that girl.
Hey, yeah, it just looks familiar to me. Wow, there's some cool stories in here.
At least it survived the toilet paper shortage.
Mm-hmm. Well, so far, it might happen again, this toilet paper shortage. And I wanted to bring up something that I remember Henry said in his review with the book, which was a very valid point, is that at least in this first Bigfoot book, we did include Dogman stories, which, looking back, I may not have done that, but I am kind of glad we threw a few in there. However, we weren't trying to say that Dogman and Bigfoot are of the same thing, but that was something that Henry, I remember you saying in your review, and thank you for leaving that, by the way. But in the second round, it'll be straight Bigfoot, Sasquatch stuff. And later on, if I want to do a Wolfman book, then I can do that. But we're going to keep those two separated from now on.
I almost forgot about the whole Wolfman thing. It's a Wolfman. I'm sorry, people. You've been pronouncing it wrong for all these years. It's Wolfman.
Can't you say the L? No, I can't.
No, it's Wolfman.
Folk is another word that's hard to say.
What is
wolf. Folk. Folks. 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 It's hard to say.
It
says folks. Hey, folks. Folks. Hey, folks. What's going on?
Folks.
It's different.
See, it sounds like something else when I say it.
Yeah, well,
I'm going to leave that alone.
You can take it.
Okay, Shannon, I need to know from you. Yeah. What is your take on Dogman? Do you actually believe that there's a possibility? Because look, the judge that saw the one in the cornfield that you presented to me on your show, that is one of the most convincing stories. And I sit here pulling my hair out going, is this thing actually a flesh and blood creature? What's your take on that?
I have a really hard time with Dogman, with Wolfman. But because it's just so wrong in so many ways. And they seem to be much more aggressive, and they don't give a crap if you see them. And, so really there should be more sightings, and maybe even one of these things getting, shot. Of course, that's a whole nother subject as far as size of weapon, size of round. You don't take, 338 Lapuas into the woods. However, when I talk to somebody like the judge, I'm like, either he's like the best actor, he's like better than Brad Pitt, he's in the wrong business. He should have not been a judge, but he should be in LA. Or he really did experience this. And these things change people's lives, like forever. And, some of the stories I'll share with you tonight from the book, it's no different for them. Have I heard a few tales that I'm kind of wondering, oh, well, maybe they misremembered, or maybe they're making a little bit more of that than they should, possibly. Of course. We've all heard stories like that. But when people like the judge come forward, you're going, why the hell would he do that? What would he get out of that? It makes no sense. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of the Dogman. Do I ever want to see one? Probably not, because they're real pissy. But even the more terrifying Bigfoot stories that I've heard, you have to be careful what you wish for. But I've been talking about this for so long now, and I'm sure all of you guys feel the same. Well, I shouldn't say probably. Maybe you guys feel the same. Even the scary ones, I'm like, you know what? I think I would take the chance. I think that I would, because I've been obsessed with it for so long that I just I need that confirmation, and sitting here in Vegas, of course, isn't getting me any closer, especially now, but I'm happy that I've had the few experiences that I have. It was enough to light the fire. And I'm like, these things, Bigfoot, may actually be out there. Not that I don't think Dogman, maybe they're a little bit more a gray area for me, but I'm just saying, I've had a couple experiences where I'm going, this is pretty damn cool, because this has catapulted me into another level of, holy crap, these might be real.
Yeah, as I was talking with Sean prior to the show, we're the only two, you and myself are the only two that are in a area that this doesn't happen, but yet Henry and Sean are. And, okay, so I definitely dig in deep into the interest, just because I can't walk out my back door and be in the area in which sightings have existed. But now I'm seeing on the BFRO all these reports around my area. I'm like, how is this even possible? Right. Even Dogman reports. How is this even possible in my area? I have no idea.
Well, I think you have to look that as this becomes more mainstream and, higher ranking in the pop culture of today, you have people that are more comfortable reporting these things, but you also have more people out there that are willing to go and investigate some of these things. Should they? That's a whole nother story for another time. But the interest is there now, too. You and I talked about this as well, Vance. You have people finally that have had reports. Shannon, you get this a lot, that have had them 20, 30, 40 years ago, that are now finally comfortable in today's environment to come forward and say, hey, I experienced this and I've held this inside for, and me, guys, I don't know how somebody that has an experience like that can hold it in for so long. That's something I would want to share. It's traumatic. I know, of having an encounter of my own. It's a traumatic thing, but I wouldn't want to be able to hold that in. Could you imagine the paranoia and the fear of if it was a scary encounter or something that tripped your mind, of every time you went into the woods now for the last 30, 40 years, you've had that in the back of your mind and you've not shared that with anybody.
Yeah.
That's something hard to overcome.
And that's one thing on your show, Shannon, that I've noticed you have asked witnesses time and time again. How did your parents react when you told them that story? And you have asked that question to numerous amounts of people, whether it was a Sasquatch encounter or a ghost or a dogman. You have asked that question repeatedly. And a lot of them are like, my dad thought I was crazy, or my mom thought I was crazy. But now you're right, Sean. We're opening that book where it's a little bit more culturally acceptable to start to share your story without the skepticism and at least the criticism of sharing that story.
Yeah, and it's to shows like Into the Fray and shows like this that have really, Sasquatch Chronicles, other shows out there that have finally made it okay, and you've given people a comfortable place to go and share that encounter. We talk about Dogman, and there have not been positive Dogman sightings. Nobody's ever left a Dogman encounter and it felt good about it.
Yeah.
I've always heard
I've
shit my pants, or I've been scared to death, or nothing. It's always associated with the feeling of evil. This isn't something that is typical of Bigfoot reports or Bigfoot encounters, right? So I wonder, and I don't even know if I wonder, sometimes they just seem a little bit more fantastic for me, and they're a little bit. Is there any embellishment, or do you really lay on to the emotion to a situation where it's really not there? Like you didn't really feel that way. You just feel that way now in retrospect, or in the moment you were scared. But to tell that story, you want to add the more oh shit effect to it. I don't know. Like I'm having a real hard time reconciling these things as I go more and more into this research. Like,
yeah,
it's hard to not be less sympathetic or empathetic, but it's hard to rationalize some of these encounters anymore. And you found a way to do that, to be very fair to the witness and be very fair to the story and portray that. And it's very honorable that you've been able to do that, because as somebody that's been this for so long, I get a little bit more dejected by them easier. So I appreciate your approach. You add a level that I don't know if I could anymore.
You're like, you're really gullible, Shannon.
No, not at all. No, I think you're just fair.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
You give people the benefit of the doubt, where some of us ancient pricks don't do that anymore.
And you know what you guys have in that little conversation, just to rewind it for a second, something interesting that I don't think has ever crossed my mind until what you guys just said, as far as Vance, somebody taking their experience to their parents. And I think one of the reasons that I, of course, asked that question is because my shadow person experience, and you guys all know the story. I told my dad about what I saw in the woods, and he said, oh, they do military exercises out here all the time. That's not what you saw. Mm-hmm. And in fact, still to this day, he still goes, I respect your work. I think you're doing amazing. You're awesome. I still don't believe that that's what you saw in the woods that day. So, but that being said, I think that there has been, I was just kind of searching my muddled mind here and kind of going, you know what? I think that for the experiences that have been told going down the line, if I talk to like a 20 or even a 30 something now, their parents were a little bit more receptive to them than, say, like me, I'll be 40 next month. Or, if I talk to a 50 or a 60, year old, forget it. They're like, oh, I wouldn't even bring that up to my parents, let alone, get the slide. Oh, I wouldn't even talk to them about that. They're like, oh, my dad was real old school. No, I couldn't even bring that up to him. So that's an interesting thing. I've never really even thought about that, and it's not always true across the board, but I really do think that I've talked to, to me, they're younger folks, early 20s, in their 30s. And their parents and or whoever was watching out for them was a little bit more open to things. So it's very generational with that, very much so.
I agree. Definitely agree there. And when our own experiences getting into this and why we continue to host shows like this, it was a different experience for me growing up. I grew up in a household where it was very talked about, and it was out in the open, and it was of an interest to not just myself, but my dad and my grandfather that also shared in that, and my uncle. So to be able to sit there and talk to somebody and have a level of belief and trust in them made it a little easier, for them to talk to me in the earlier stages. Do you think, I don't think similarly you had maybe the same experiences growing up, or was it a receptive topic in your household, the Bigfoot and the paranormal? And if not, how did you jump into that and make that something you wanted to do?
I mean, I think that I got a ghost book at some point, Hans Holzer, one of the classics, and I remember, and I still need to get a copy of it, but
great book, by the way.
Yes. Haunted America. He's got a lot of books, but I still have it. It's a hard copy. Beautiful. And then Phone Call from a Ghost. I remember that very vividly. That was another one that I had in my collection early on. So it didn't really even start with Bigfoot stuff. And I've said it many times. I don't even remember like my inception into Bigfoot. Like I don't remember the light bulb moment when I'm like, oh my God, big hairy creatures. I mean, of course I remember watching Harry and the Hendersons, but I don't even think that was, a lightning bolt moment for me. I don't know what it was, but something snapped and I was head over heels for the big guy. So, sometimes I do kind of get bummed out that I'm back in Vegas and I can't go to places like Salt Fork and I can't kind of hang out with you guys and all that kind of stuff. It's so different now. So as Vance said, the show is, like getting that thing going. That's all I've got now, is to live vicariously through others. So
I get it.
Yeah.
So share some favorite stories, like you alluded to earlier, that you wanted to talk about.
You want brown pants stories?
Yeah, absolutely. The scarier, the better.
All right.
Absolutely.
Any other day.
I know Henry likes those kinds, so I got to do that for him. Let's see. Which one do I want to start with? How about let's start with Derek Randall's story.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
the cries of a baby. So, for those of you who don't know who Derek Randall's is, he is part of the Olympic Project in Washington State, and he it's very distracting just to look at myself. I need to see your faces. Put y'all back up.
You can't see me. There you go. Where'd Vance go? Oh, there he is.
Peekaboo.
What a dork.
He's like, I was doing something, you ass.
No.
I was busy. Okay, so Derek Randall's. So his initial sighting was, I believe, in 1995. He had a sighting of a Bigfoot. That's for another time. 1998. This is so cool because he's like, he admittedly goes, I was kind of following Grover Krantz and I wanted to talk to him. And so he actually invited himself over to Grover Krantz's house, which, if you don't know, Grover Krantz is like, they call him one of the four horsemen, the original of Bigfootery. Yeah.
Yes.
So for those of you guys that don't know, look up Grover Krantz. You need to know him. So he goes over to Grover's house, which, oh my God, all of us would just give our left leg to go over to Grover Krantz's house at any point in time. He goes over there, and they're getting into a conversation about different tactics and where would you go, what would you do. He's grilling Grover Krantz. It's a great opportunity to do so. And Derek's like, okay, Grover, well, where would you go? And what would you do, if you wanted to, like, call in a Sasquatch? And Grover's like, well, I really like the McCall, Idaho area. And Derek's like, okay, cool. All right, awesome. Well, what would you do to, bring a Sasquattle in? He didn't say Sasquattle. I say that. I apologize. Derek would not use such a ridiculous
word. Yeah.
Yeah. Big
feetses.
Biggie. Can't you see? So Grover says, well, actually, Derek, I would use the cry of a baby to bring these things in. And Derek's like, okay, very interesting. and he leaves Grover's house and he's like, damnedest thing, I've got a baby at home. And he records his baby. And of course, this is in 1998. He gets his handy dandy cassette recorder out, records his son crying for however long, and is able to put that on a loop. So it's ready to go. So he doesn't go to McCall, Idaho. I have misspoken about that in the past, by the way, because it's just McCall, Idaho's in my head. He doesn't go to McCall, Idaho. He goes to the Blue Mountains. Okay. So he takes his recorder with him. And by the way, let me just caveat this. Let me just preface this, I should say, by saying I have been in the presence of Derek Randall's in Washington State. The man is a badass. He is like a Sherpa, a goat, like a military man all in one. Yep. And in this story, he will tell you he hiked 6 hours one way by himself into the middle of goddamn nowhere. And that is exactly what the man does. He is bad to the bone. So he's by himself. He does go armed. So at least there's that. He's not totally making bad decisions here. So he goes out. He's got a camera and he's got a monocular night vision, which, again, I'm sorry, I keep kind of getting off track. But if you guys are really into Bigfooting and you're in areas and you actually go and do this, if you can afford any kind of night vision, I prefer the monoculars because the doubles just really, at least you have one eyeball you can see out of when you're done with them and you don't screw up your own night vision. But they're invaluable because a lot of times a squirrel sounds like this massive freaking thing in the bush, and then you can be like, squirrel, raccoon.
Yeah. Especially in the dead of night, yes, I agree.
Everything is just amplified. It sounds, I've heard squirrels. I'm like, dude, what are you eating? Like, you sound like you just never know. Anyway, if you can get one, highly recommend it. So he's armed with all of these things. He goes hiking 6 hours one way. He sees this nice ravine. He climbs to the top of it. He's got a creek at the bottom. And then on the other side is a nice wood line. So he's like, all right, I'm in a pretty damn good spot here. So he sets up. It starts to get dark. He's kind of going, all right, it's looking like a good time to start this recording playing. So he does as such. He starts to play it. It's got incredible acoustics, which you will find out shortly isn't so good for him. So he plays this recording. It's echoing off this ravine in the canyons in this area. And he's kind of starting to get a headache. His own son is crying now in his ears after a long drive, 6-hour hike. He's getting tired, but he's letting this damn thing play. Well, he starts to hear off in the distance coming down the hill something quite large, like crashing around. And he's like, well, that's friggin' massive. So he actually does get his gun out at this point. There are other things in the woods that can be a problem besides a Bigfoot, guys. So recording is still playing. And the crashing kind of stops for a few minutes, but then it starts again. And he's noticing now the crashing is even closer to him. And now he's getting a little bit more concerned because and his words were, it sounded like an elephant or a linebacker making its way down this hill opposite of him towards the creek, down into the ravine. As it gets closer, he can tell it's on two legs. It's bipedal. Now he's really worried. Because now guess what? Like I fear, be careful what you wish for. He's out there for this, and he's going, holy I think that this may be what I think it is. Recorder's still going. Mind you, it's quite dark. He's waiting for this thing to see if it's going to crash out of the brush. And he's going, do I have the nerve to keep this recording going? And he decides, rightfully so, as it is crashing. It's hard to say a crashing and to impart that. I mean, I say it out loud. I've read it. I've talked to him and seen him tell me this story. It's hard to impart just how loud this is, but he assures the readers and myself, if you've ever heard him tell this story, it sounded like an effing elephant coming down the hill towards him. He finally loses his nerve when he feels like it's just about to come through the brush on the other side of this creek, shuts the recording off. And here's where it gets real good. This thing stops immediately. The crashing stops. So now it's silent except for heavy, raspy breathing, which he says is now at this point almost even worse than the crashing noise, right? So something massive is standing on the other side of the creek, just inside the wood line, breathing extremely heavily. And he says for what seems like an eternity, but he says it's probably only, a few minutes, something even creepier happens. And that is the breathing stops. He hears nothing. So now he has no clue where this thing is. And he knows for a fact, that was most likely a Bigfoot. And he upset it pretty badly. He says he got tired enough to actually fall asleep. And you hear this a lot in all kinds of encounters. You would think, oh my God, how could you go to sleep? You actually hear that all the time, whether it's in your own house or out in the woods, the adrenaline dump and you go to sleep. So he falls asleep. He wakes up the next morning. He admits he didn't have any of the creepy feelings that he had before. He wasn't terrified, nothing like that. He made his way down, crosses the creek, goes over to where he heard the thing stop and breathing and all these things going on. And there were two massive impressions in the brush and also like a massive game trail, leading to and from that very area. So he, unfortunately, he now has to hike back out 6 hours just to even get to his truck. But he admits, I didn't hear anything weird. I didn't feel anything, shadowing me or paralleling me while I was walking back to my truck. But, and coming from Derek, it really is something to hear. He admits that not only was he more terrified than he's ever been in his entire life. And at this point, mind you, he hadn't seen anything. He had seen something 3 years before that. He was done with Bigfooting, done with research. But in fact, he was done with the research before he even shut off the recorder. And he said that he just felt bad for the creature that was on the other side of the ravine because he had put this emotional stress on it. Because remember, maybe it did, I don't know. It was coming towards the baby crying. It may not even have known he was there. It was just, about this baby cry. So, lesson is, and I've asked him this in person, would you ever play a baby cry in the woods ever again? And he will look at you and he will say the F word and no. So that
it's unnerving.
It is, and he didn't see anything. That's that's the whole crazy thing about this story. But it's one of my favorite ones. It's so cool to be in the presence of Derek while he's telling this.
I've been in the woods when they've used baby crying lures, and it's an incredibly uncomfortable feeling as it is, without bringing anything into the general vicinity. And that feeling of being done, I completely understand. I'd love to talk to Derek sometime about this in depth personally, not on the air, because there's some elements to that interest me psychologically. But that's a hell of a story. Like being 6 hours in, and then being
totally
stuck
alone
there in the middle of the night all by yourself, and then not knowing what's going to happen to you at this point moving forward. And then he kind of falls asleep. I don't think he intentionally shuts his eyes to go to sleep. I think he kind of just dwindles off into sleep and then wakes up. And that's a hell of a story and scary. Troy in the chat says that he made it, Shannon. He wanted you to see that, but also the story gave him the collie wobbles like no tomorrow. Collie wobbles.
Yeah.
I like that. We may steal that, Troy. Tell us where to send the 25 cents. Borrow that from him. That was great. But it's a great story.
Thank you. And like I always say, with any of my own stuff, the only thing I've ever seen with my own eyes, besides the shadow people, is that damn light in the woods while I was out Bigfooting. That's probably for another time. But, on that same trip, the auditory stuff, I didn't see it, so I didn't know it was Bigfoot. I mean, in Derek's case, let's do the math here. He saw the impressions, and I'm pretty sure all of us would agree that was likely a Bigfoot. When we did play baby cries, when I was at the Brown property with Wes Germer and his girlfriend at the time, and we were at the Brown property and with Kirk Brandenburg and the guys. So at some point, we were actually just playing something off YouTube, and we got. Again, didn't see anything, so I don't know. I'm not calling it Sasquatch. I'm just saying it was cool. If it was a person, bravo to them. But something came in. It was a while. It was after 30 minutes of playing this thing. It does get damn annoying. I can agree with Derek on that. But something came in and was going whoop, whoop, whoop. And it sounded female. We all agreed. We're like, that sounds female. Am I crazy? Are you crazy? We all agreed. And it went in groups of 3. It went on for 45 minutes. Now, unfortunately, it's Washington State. There was this it was just pattering, spittering rain, just enough to just muffle all of our recorders, of course. But we could hear this with our own ears. This went on until the very, very second that the phone died. The YouTube video stopped, and just like in Derek's case, immediately gone. Nothing. No sound. No footsteps. No more noises. No nothing. It was gone. Done. And we tried to fire another phone up. The activity was done. So it's just the damnedest thing. And am I saying that was a Sasquatch? No, I don't know what the hell it was. But it was interesting. I didn't see it making the noise. But the cries of a baby does work for something. Maybe it was a Wendigo that came in. How the hell do I know? But it was cool.
Right?
Yeah.
One of the creepiest things, as long as we're talking about the baby crying, And Shannon, I believe it was on your show with the doll that was put out in the woods that had the audio where you squeeze a doll and it would cry. And they left it out there just to see what would happen. And 2:30 in the morning, you hear the baby doll crying out in the woods.
I'd be
That's terrifying. I'm sorry, but I'm getting in the camper, I'm hooking it up, and I'm out. Because that's terrifying.
No.
Because what does that, right? And you could say, a raccoon or something. But really, what the hell?
Sorry.
What's going to
He'd
do
actually have to like pick his butt up and like sit on it. Like it had to be a big raccoon.
pressure, right?
No.
It needs some tangibility.
Like, squeaky.
Yeah.
But and the stories of people being lured out into the woods, like the siege of Hanabi.
Yeah.
I mean, calling the dogs, calling Mike, calling all of these other things, and you're going, holy crap! Like there's some intelligence there. Period.
That gets me anytime I hear stories like that, or and I have heard things, not recordings of what sounds like one of these things calling a person. And
you've heard it yourself?
I've heard it several times from different individuals, and it's chilling. I'm getting goosebumps right now just thinking about the one recording I heard, and it just hits you in this visceral place that really sends a level of discomfort through you, because what else has that ability?
Right.
Right. We know known animals. What else has that ability to do that? And God, it just sends a shiver right down my ample sized posterior. It's scary.
So I have several birds in my home, as many people know. The only bird in my house that also has vocal cords is my African gray, and he can mimic myself. He can mimic my daughter. He mimics the other birds. He mimics, whatever the hell he wants. He can mimic it. Very, very good. There's reports of African grays calling, in the owner's voice and tone and cadence, a dog into a room, and then the dog comes in like, "Hey, Dad, where are you?" And then the bird laughs his ass off because he's like, you stupid. He's not in here. So unless there's African grays loose in the woods, I don't like Sean said, I don't know what else can do that. But
not with that vocal capacity, though.
Oh God, no,
Well,
not with the lungs
point,
like this big. I mean, and the fact that they're using things like, they try to mimic voices, or they'll do this baby cry, at night to try to get you to come out of your. I would be. That's really on the no list for me, and I joke about that. But honest to God, if I would be ruined on camping, at least for a long time, if I was out in the middle of nowhere and I just heard a baby crying out in the middle of the woods. Would you guys go to that? I wouldn't go out there.
No.
I don't go in the woods by myself. Period. As a rule of thumb, I will never do it.
You're a smart man.
Well, actually, I'm a little more brave. I will go into the woods as long as I'm inside an M1A1 tank. That's about it.
I just won't do it. Part of it is because of stuff like that.
We know too much now, guys. We're ruined.
And that's the thing. This is a great conversation, because Vance and I had this talk like 2 hours ago about, how some people just seem to have experiences over and over again. And and the truth of the matter is, we could have more experiences than we know about. It's just most people, if you aren't in this field of study or of this interest, are you really thinking about it every time you step into the woods?
Right.
No, you're not, right?
No.
And we 100% doing that all the time as well. I mean, if you're not going out with the express purpose of, research, you're just going out maybe to enjoy a run, it might not be in the forefront of your mind, so you could be missing things that are happening. And when these I just stuttered there for a second. When you have these encounters, or these everyday people have these encounters, they're doing most of the time everyday things. They're hunting, jogging. We're going out there with the express purpose to try to find something, so we're locking our mind into what we think is possible. as opposed to these people that are out doing everyday things that aren't even considering it, and they just happen to encounter it or experience it. Maybe we're doing it all wrong. I don't know, but we could have more experiences than we really know about. But because we're so focused on it, we're actually creating the opposite of effect that we're trying to cascade.
You think we're putting out the pheromones too much? Bigfoot's like, I smell that research.
That researcher sucks. Yeah. I mentioned to Sean that when I left Chicago to head to the Mothman Festival last year, and you're driving through the beginnings of eastern Ohio where the Blue Ridge Mountains start, there's a lot of forested areas. And as soon as Sean and myself met up, one of the first things I mentioned to him in a conversation was, I wonder how many times... Yeah, right. I wonder how many times I was stared at by a creature that I'm unaware of.
All right.
Because you cannot stare into the woods in your entire drive to look for something. You try, but, being so elusive. But you know what? I'm a true soul believer in the fact that these creatures do exist. And hands down, I don't care what people think. I do believe these creatures do exist. From the beginning of man walking on the face of the earth, there's documented history of something that is all similar to this being. I've never seen one. I've had weird experiences, but to know the expanse of the United States and the forest lands that do exist, come on. Driving down to even Point Pleasant, I'm like, I was probably stared at a number of times and had no idea of it.
There's a great story of an exploding deer, too, but I think Henry may have had a question a moment ago.
Raise your hand there.
Henry, did you have something you wanted to say? I thought I saw a hand raised there.
Yes. I was just wondering about the stories in Shannon's book of somebody hearing something but not actually seeing something. Now, obviously, audio is harder to test if you have no recording of it. But obviously, if these people are having strange audio encounters, then maybe they're hearing something and they just don't want to. They don't want. Do you think that they don't want to record it, or do you think that it's something that they? I just wonder if they're trying to keep it to themselves.
You mean as far as people that are going out specifically for Bigfoot research, and then they come home and they say, oh, there was so much activity, but they didn't get anything?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, and unfortunately, I've been on this side of the coin, certainly, and I just brought it up as far as the Brown property. I think a lot of times there just has to be so many factors that fall into place perfectly to get a recording. And I'm not trying to make an excuse, especially for those, by the way, and you make a good point, Henry, especially for those people that claim to be, habituating or they have Bigfoot on their property. If you're saying that you're hearing these things and or seeing these things on a weekly, daily, even monthly basis, if you're seeing these things monthly, you're doing pretty damn good, because a lot of us has been in this for years and years and years, and we haven't even got a glimpse of one of these things. So it's a great point. I mean, if people are continuing to claim contact, where's the evidence? You have to have something. And, something like Donna in Washington State, she's got audio evidence. Because guess what? She was saying she was seeing them, quite often. And more so hearing a lot of things and they would leave things and all of that. She actually does have audio recording. So that's the nice thing about some of those cases. Others, I totally am on board with you. I'm kind of going, if you're having that much going on, how can you, it's not raining every single night. And, your recorder didn't run out of battery every single night. Something else is going on there. So it's a really good point.
Well, that kind of principle was applied to the Hanubi situation. You have so much going on, but nothing to show for it. Same with a lot of habituation moments, right? Like if you have all this stuff going on, where's your evidence and where's your proof? And I think as Troy and I are kind of going back and forth in the chat a little bit, he's saying in his case it happened so quick he had nothing to record it with. The same can be applied to video. Sometimes these things happen. You don't have time to react. When I had my experience, I had a camera with night vision in the tent, but I never once thought to grab it and use it because at that point your mind goes into another area. You don't go into evidence collection mode. You go into, I got to survive.
What the hell mode? Yeah.
I'm going to die.
That's totally different. Yeah. If it's, you're in the moment, even if you're out there for Bigfoot, right? Yeah. Like if it's actually happening finally, I wouldn't give a crap about getting my phone and getting evidence for you guys. No offense. But that wouldn't even cross my mind. You're going, holy shit, it's real. Like,
because it's a personal event. Yes, it's a very personal event. Yes, absolutely. I agree. We have a very common friend in this group, and this person has been collecting a lot of audio evidence for years. And a lot of this evidence has gone to David Ellis, and he's put it through every spectrogram that he can possibly put it through. I've been sharing this with Sean. And there's a couple of really compelling audio evidence that just creeps us out. It creeps me out. I know Sean said he was creeped out with a moo call. You hear a cow in the background mooing, and then you hear and then you hear a mimic of a moo call, but the lung capacity was just it just abolished the ability of what a cow could do.
And the reason that resonated so much with me is because I had a similar encounter with the same sound in Keystone State Park in Pennsylvania on the Chestnut Ridge. I recorded it. I have the sound file. I'll be glad to share that with you. It's ridiculous because I'm using my own vocals to, go back and forth with this thing. I mean, you can hear me go back and forth, and at the end, I go a little extreme just to see if I'll get any reaction back. But that sound that Vance shared with me, again, the goosebumps, because I've experienced that sound myself hundreds of miles apart now. You're talking about over 10 different years apart. Like, it's incredible.
Can you guys share what state that moo incident happened, or is that
I don't know exactly
which state? It would be somebody that Shannon, in South Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so it's not where I thought it was. It's further away. So, but it's that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Lends more credence to the existence of this thing.
And look, the only reason why I'm not sharing that information is because it's private information, and this is being compiled. For a presentation, and I don't want to ruin that presentation whatsoever. So that anonymity isn't so much for I don't want to. No, that's not it. Okay. It's being compiled to be shared with the general public. This is just respect for this individual who's been sharing with myself and sharing with Sean and sharing with Henry, and some of it is just. And you know what, Shannon? To be quite honest, this person would be more than happy to share with you, which I would do, because some of this audio is hundreds of hours of audio is, and every one of them is just mind-blowing. This is something that is not a known animal.
When are we flying out there, guys? When are we going?
We can talk
about we're trying to make plans for this year, actually.
I don't want to keep baiting the listeners with something we can't talk about. So let's get back to the book.
No, this is true. This is true.
They do.
Yeah, I know they do. Yeah.
Vance, just really quickly, because when I was making my statement about, be careful what you wish for, and even though these stories suck and they're scary, I would still probably hold my hand up like a moron and go, yes, I would still take it. You were kind of nodding your head still. Are you of the same mind then?
You know what? And let me put it to you this way, Shannon, to answer your question. Probably about a year and a half ago, I had a dream that I had a Sasquatch experience. It terrified me to no end. It absolutely terrified me because it was in kind of a very virtual reality situation that I had this dream that this thing stepped out from the trees, and it was a change your underwear moment. And I woke up from it going, thank God it was a dream. I don't know if I want to have that close proximity. But again, how many people have you interviewed, Shannon, that you said, would you want to see it? And they're like, well, yeah, if I'm 200 yards away and I'm in a tank or I'm in a protected environment, you cannot set up that type of situation or environment to have that encounter. Right. But, I don't know that from the more and more experiences and listening to this, I'm not so certain to the fact that the big hairy fella and woman, because it seems to be a 50-50 thing, and having those encounters is as aggressive as we may all assume it might be. Look, they're elusive for a reason from us. There is a reason why they're elusive. And I don't think it's for a violent nature. I think it's just, I want my space. You stay over there. I'm over here. And yeah, if you encroach in on their space, it might get a little bit hairy, but I don't know. This is something that's totally up in the air. Do I want to put myself in the middle of their territory and say, hey, I want to know about you? I don't know. Because even a slap against the trailer or the cabin, that would scare the living daylights out of me, and I'd want to, boop, I'm out.
Okay. This is your fault, so we're going to have to do this.
Oh, okay. Thanks, John. Thanks. Good. I just signed myself up and didn't know I was doing it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Thanks for volunteering.
Yeah. Hey, no, you know what it is? Sean and Henry, they can be in the camper, and Vance, you're in the tent, my friend. You're in the tent out front, and you can have the experience.
Could you imagine that handprint?
The hand. Yes.
No. Good God. Good God. No. The handprint on the
messed up would you be? You know what I mean? Like, you're out there solo and there's enough moonlight and you just see this hand. No. Nope.
Yeah.
That's happened to a few of our, colleagues. Maybe not so dramatically with the moonlight, framing it up. But I know Billy Willard had his leg yanked and grabbed. And
yes,
I remember that story from Billy like it was yesterday. That happened to him, I think, down in Texas. I think.
Was that Sam Houston?
Paris, Texas.
Paris. Okay.
Paris, Texas.
Paris.
Yeah, Bigfoot got a little touchy-feely with my old friend Billy Willie. And
Billy's a good-looking guy. What do you want?
Yeah.
I've met Billy. That was the first Bigfoot conference that I ever went to.
The Virginia?
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't make a group of guys better than that. I'm sorry, some of them aren't researching anymore. Good friends. Good friends of mine. And I've spent time in the field with Billy. I was on the phone with his sons and him when they had their Bigfoot encounter. I was on the phone when it happened. So
I didn't know that.
Oh, I got great stories for you that the listeners are here for you.
I didn't know that either, Shannon, until he told me that the other night.
They're here for you, and we want to talk about Beyond the Fray Bigfoot.
Okay, but before before we do that, listen. You're on with another interviewer. This is
I know. This is the battle of the interviews.
Okay, wait. Let me close the door. Reset. No. How opportunistic do you guys think Bigfoot is? And this could be a good segue to another story. If you want to go there, fine. But going off missing people, all of this stuff. That's a whole nother hot topic subject. Missing 411 stuff. However,
what is it?
How right? What is it? Is it from the sky? Is it from the ground? What is it? From the air? It's a Thunderbird. How opportunistic do you guys think? Oh,
sorry, Mom.
How am I going to Sorry, Mom. How opportunistic is Bigfoot?
It has to be. I think that's how it survives. I don't think it has the same luxuries we do. Like everything in its life is about opportunity, right? It's meal, whether it's breaking the neck of a deer or it's stealing someone's food or everything. Someone, right? So when we tongue in cheek, sometimes the missing 411 thing, there's a lot of, we don't know, right? I remember back in the day, I used to get a lot of questions Has anybody ever been attacked or killed by a Bigfoot? Well, yeah, we know they've been attacked, but how the hell do we know if they were killed? It's not like they're going to come back and tell Henry, get the Ouija board out. And
Wait, I do have a story like that in Paramalgamation. They came back and they talked about being killed and eaten by a Bigfoot.
Well, there you go. See?
No,
hey.
I don't. That was
well, damn it! Don't get my hopes up. I haven't finished your book yet. Now, Vance is going to be getting that one out of the dumpster. I'm kidding. We talk about those, Shannon. We really don't know, right? As much as we would like to say that these things don't happen, and Bigfoot's like Harry from Harry and the Hendersons, as with any wild animal or being, and even people are this way. There are homicidal versions of those, and with all things, we should approach with caution, right? Missing 411, there's a lot of details we don't have in these reports. And as much as David Paulides would like to distance himself from this in terms of, because he doesn't want to label himself, a crypto kook looking for missing people, I don't think that even though professionally he's distancing himself from us, I don't think you can distance that because it is a possibility.
At least in some of the cases, right? We're not saying the whole thing, but at least in some.
In some.
Some of them. Sure.
This isn't the Bigfoot scary show. Sasquatch Experience is not about that. It's about experiences people have with Sasquatch. Good or bad, that's what we talk about. But I'm not painting this being or creature out to be some sort of homicidal, vindictive monster. What I'm saying is we can't rule that out in some of these cases. And missing 411 is just so incredible. There's so many variables to it. If you take Bigfoot out, and I know it's easy to do that, especially to some of our listeners out there who are on the fence of whether this exists or not, it's a possibility and a dark possibility that we do have to acknowledge. And I just don't know how, you ask if this thing is opportunistic. Like I said, in my opinion, its whole life is opportunity, about being opportunistic. That's how it survived.
I mean, that's how most predators are out there.
Absolutely.
Right.
If they fly, if they crawl, whatever they do.
It's kind of along that same line a little bit, but you have this theory for years about this Alaskan land bridge, and that's how this creature came here. Okay, well, if you look at it in a scientific means, and this creature were to have lived in China, why couldn't it have lived here? Why did it have to cross a land bridge? That doesn't make any sense to me. Evolution would have developed in both land masses at the same time. And I have a feeling that the creature probably may be a little bit different than those in China, but still would have lived here. And yes, we have Gigantopithecus as a possible, what the minimal amount of tooth and bone fragments that we do have to reconstruct such a figure. Why couldn't have a creature been in the North American continent at the same time, never having to cross a land bridge? And opportunistic is, getting a food source from anywhere. I see primatologists saying, well, North America really doesn't have the kind of plant life that a primate would live on. I'm sorry, but if you have deer, you have cows, you have horses, and they're a meat eater, there's plenty of food sources here for these creatures. And I do think that they're very opportunistic, and even if you're throwing apples out in your backyard, why wouldn't they come in if you lived in that prime real estate where they may exist or pass through? Why not?
Vance, what would one throw in their backyard to get you to come in?
I don't know, a couple of, certain types of magazines, maybe Victoria's Secrets. I don't know. Victoria's
Secret's all it takes, man.
Wow.
I need something a lot more than that. I'm sorry, Henry, you had a question, buddy?
A big bowl of fettuccine. Yeah, Alfredo.
High five on that.
There you go.
Well, what I wanted to follow up on something. I wanted to follow up on something Vance said that was referring to the fact that these creatures may have already been here. Only thing is, there's no fossil record of any kind of creature like that having been here.
Right.
But there's fossil records of small primates having been here.
Right. But if you look at the Pacific Northwest as the extreme rainforest in which it is, it's very difficult to have any kind of fossil record to begin with, because the forest consumes any kind of bone matter and calcium from other animals, and then the earth consumes it. There isn't any trace evidence of a fossil evidence.
How dare
and I
you
think
blame
that's
it on the earth?
Yeah, I know, right? And so I think that has a lot to do with it as to why we don't have the fossil record. We only assume because we have fossil in stone, say, well, this creature only lived here. That's not necessarily true. You know, look at how many people argue the fact that, well, we haven't found any bone evidence of Bigfoot, so therefore it doesn't exist. It lives in the forest. You ever walk through the forest off a path? It's extremely mushy because you have layers and layers and layers of decaying product. Well, Sean, seriously, you have layers of decaying product, and if you put bones in there, it will decay just as quickly. There's no rock matter that it's going to turn into.
We just like when you get fired up. That's all.
It was how you said it. Have you ever walked through a forest? Have you ever? It was great. I'm sorry. It really. I thought of Louis Anderson right away.
Wait, hang on.
Have you ever walked through a forest? That's what I
You
thought.
damn kids, you don't know what you're talking about.
It was great. No, but you know, I guess convergent evolution or whatever you want to call it. The more I drink, the smarter I get when it comes to those things.
Yeah.
It's a possibility. We don't know. I don't like to live in the past, though, because we have evidence that it exists today. We have things called footprints, footprint casts, which are a kind of a good substitute for a lack of bone, right? And we don't know if we don't have any Bigfoot fossils.
They bury the bodies also.
They
bury don't you know this?
They bury the dead.
I've seen the ceremonies.
Did you watch this video a couple of, I don't know, I just happened upon it a couple days ago of all the dogs that were burying a dead dog?
No.
Yes. A dog passed away and these other dogs were burying it. I was like, what am I watching here? Is it a natural instinct to cover the dead body under dirt?
Were they feral?
Yes. They were feral dogs burying a dead feral dog.
That's bizarre. I've not.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of changed my perspective on a lot of things to say it is possible that in order to prevent the smell, the flies, the bacteria, the disease, cover it. You know, let the earth take it.
Shannon, I just finished reading Max Brooks' Devolution. Have you read that?
I need to.
So good. And at 3:00 in the morning, I'm sending text messages to Vance that he and I need to go study chimpanzees because I really think that we've looked at this wrong. I think it is some sort of relative of a chimpanzee. And I had a weird dream one time I'll be glad to share you about. And I've always kind of had that chimpanzee vibe from it. One, they scare me and I hate them. I don't like chimpanzees.
Would it be the fact that they rip people's faces off, maybe?
And
could be.
And if you smile at them, I don't like them.
Right.
And Planet of the Apes could happen with those bastards. That's the thing I really don't like. And I really, I think one of my larger concerns would be with Sasquatch Bigfoot is if it is chimpanzee related. We're in for a world of what we don't know the capacities and capabilities of this thing. And then my mindset is that scares the hell out of me.
Do you think they're plotting a takeover? Is that what you guys are saying?
Chimpanzees? I think they should just.
Where have I seen this before? I don't know. Somebody named Caesar. They've seen this somewhere before.
But chimpanzees, man, are smart. They're not dumb.
No,
they
very
are
true.
Frighteningly alert and intelligence, and I don't think we even remotely know their full capacities yet. And this isn't even sci-fi Planet of the Apes shit. This is, if Bigfoot is a relative of the chimpanzee, it's much larger, it's much stronger, and you know how strong chimpanzees are. That just blows my mind.
Scary.
On the
9 foot tall strength. Yeah, no kidding.
You know what? I listened to Beyond Bigfoot the other day with Cliff and Bobo, and there was measurements that were wrong on the Patterson-Gimlin film. Henry, are you familiar with this? Where Patty might not be 7 feet tall. She may be more along the lines of 6 feet tall. Oh. And Bigfoot himself may between the 5 foot to 6 foot range, maybe a more common height for Bigfoot. I saw a nod there.
Oh, that controversy has been going around for years.
Yeah. So, but what do you think of that? Is that you're the expert on that far more than I am, Mr. Bigfoot Encyclopedia? Are you with me?
Well, as far as Sasquatch being 5 to 6 feet tall, no. They would have to be. I mean, people have measured them as tall as 8 feet, 9 feet, even 10 feet. Mm-hmm. So there's no possibility that somebody's going to be intimidated by something that's 5 foot tall.
Pretty scary.
And then, unless they're exaggerating.
Got big guns, though.
I'm fast for my size. I'm like a dwarf, a natural.
Right, but anatomically, that would make some of the foot casts that have been taken completely disproportionate.
Yeah,
because now you're talking a foot that is absolutely huge to something that's only 5 feet tall.
Hey, they're sensitive about it. It's like a hobbit, okay? It wasn't proportionate for the hobbits.
Thank you, Shannon. You're also leaving out the human predilection for embellishment.
Yes.
And sometimes when we want things to be 10 feet tall, they are 10 feet tall. When we want them to be 9 feet tall, they are 9 feet tall. And at nighttime, when things are scary, sometimes things are bigger. That's what she said. And
I was thinking that. I'm sorry. I was really thinking that earlier when you're thinking sometimes when you want something to be bigger, I'm going to leave that alone. But you went there. Okay.
I did. I always do.
Tonight's episode is brought to you by Viagra.
The Blue Chew. I said we weren't doing that. Damn it, Vance.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's Blue Chew. It's Blue Chew. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I said
don't say
pot
the B
and
word.
booze.
It's BC.
That was all we were going to promote was marijuana and booze. Nothing.
No vitamins?
No
vitamins?
No.
And so, Henry, what you're saying is...
we all said that at first. We all go to the dark side, okay? I've done it.
I have principles, damn it.
You say that now.
Vance will need them before I will.
Yeah.
Henry, so what you're saying, he's going to die. Henry.
We're really going off the rails right now.
We are. So what you're saying
good.
is...
That's what I want.
Is that right? That study was incorrect. But what if this is more Paranthropus or Australopithecus like?
What did you just
That
call
would
me?
make sense for it to be smaller. Is that right?
That's a good point. I mean, there may be a possibility that maybe some of them are related to Paranthropus or Australopithecus, and they weren't very tall. They were only about 6 foot, maybe less than that.
And we have to remember there is a huge diversity and physical characteristics for Bigfoot. So we may be talking about many different varieties of maybe different species of something we group in generically as Sasquatch. As region to region, we know that the physical characteristics change. They may not be the same entity.
I have a question for all of you.
Mm-hmm.
Am I the only...
No.
Here we go. Am I the only one that's not excited by the orang pendek? I just think that's just like an orangutan or
an orang offshoot.
Yes.
Yeah. It doesn't excite me at all.
Oh, good. Let me jump in on that one because I had this conversation with Sean 2 nights ago.
Really?
Look, back in the 1600s, when the trade ships are coming from Africa and from Europe, coming into South America and into Florida for trade, for the rum trade, the sugar trade, they had exotic animals on those ships. And part of that exotic animals, was the orangutan. Now, Sean and I said, well, immediately we need to look into see if orangutan and chimpanzee could breed with each other without artificial insemination. Right. But if they brought orangutan to Florida, it's very possible because look at how many skunk ape sightings that have been seen that have been described as having that rust color hair, which is very similar to orangutan.
Well, you look
Not
at the
saying that it is still the same orangutan because now it is in a different environment altogether. different food source, and it may be more bipedal because it's more of a swampland, and has to remain more bipedal to keep its body out of the water. Who's to say that this hasn't, gone through an evolution period over a couple hundred years, not 1,000 years, but a couple hundred years to learn to walk upright, and is very aggressive because look at the Everglades. What a hostile environment that must be. Hell yeah, it sucks. I'd be pissed off if I had to live out there.
Yeah.
That's my take.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Vance answered the question for us. No, I like add a little bit onto that. I don't know if they can genetically compatible to breed.
I don't know either.
But when you look at the Mayaka ape, it kind of looks like what you would assume a chimpanzee and orangutan would have if they had a wild love baby.
A love child.
Love child. Yeah, it would look rather like that. Yeah. And it's possible. I don't know if it's possible, but who the hell are we to say what's possible or not?
Hey, when you never mind, I'm not going to.
Jurassic Park.
No,
Nature
do it. Go for it.
Nature finds a way.
All right,
nature
Henry.
finds a way.
Henry, in your research, what year was it that the billy ape was discovered as an official creature on the face of the earth? And I believe it was out of the Congo. I believe it was the year 2000. Am I pretty close to that? When the billy ape was actually discovered as a bipedal primate?
That was like in the 90s sometime.
Okay. 95 or 96.
Only in recent years. Yeah. In recent years, they've kind of acknowledged it. Well, they have to acknowledge it. But and there are remains of this billy ape, so...
And video footage of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's video of it, right?
Yes.
They just got video footage of a rare species of gorilla. Shannon, I don't know if you saw that. Somebody posted it on Facebook the other day. It's the first videos of these gorilla that have been taken. And look how long we've known about gorillas.
What I mean, did they look completely different from the ones that we already know?
I wouldn't be able to tell them from Coco. Like they look like regular everyday gorillas, but there's something about the area they come from that makes them unique.
Interesting.
And it's the year 2020, and we just now have video footage of them. So you can't tell me that the probability of Bigfoot is low when we're still discovering new species of large primate.
Right.
Regardless,
every single day we're discovering new species. Yeah.
Calm down now. I want you to list some. All right, let's list. Last 5 days of species. Vance, go.
The flying scorpion. That's a new species. The 3,000-legged centipede, which doesn't make it a centipede anymore. Yeah, I know, right?
What would we call that?
And flying arachnids coming to a Nevada near you.
Vance.
Coming to Nevada near you.
That's weird, Vance. We're not supposed to torment our guests.
Yeah, flying camel spiders.
Camel spiders. Yeah.
Oh, with
they're
wings.
already from hell. They don't need wings. I'll tell you that much now. No.
Yeah. But hey, there are new species discovered on a daily basis. Now, primarily, to be completely fair, most of those species are oceanic discoveries, only because, look, our oceans are not nearly discovered as much. But, that's an entirely different show that we'll do on Super NRML. But, the fact remains that I see on a regular basis, here's a new frog that was just discovered that we didn't know existed in the Pacific Northwest. Okay, this is the Pacific Northwest. People have been settling there since, the 1600s, and we're just now discovering this new tree frog. So, to say that, this big-footed creature doesn't exist there, I don't buy it. There's just so much evidence that, I'm sorry, we'll convict guilty. Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. That's a very good point, Sean. Yeah. There's been a lot of aircraft that have gone down that we still haven't recovered.
Now again, this particular conversation could go on forever. But the reality is,
what do you say?
We would like it to be so. We just don't know it to be so. And there's a difference between a tree frog and an 8'8". Okay, that's a big freaking difference.
How rude to the tree frog. I mean, really.
Well, they're not that important.
Minimalizing him.
Right, and it's probably really poisonous and would kill us.
And has fangs. Okay.
Yeah. Where were we?
What are you dreaming about? You're flying camel spiders and fangs on spiders.
Excuse me, but I've been working on this all night, okay? So
that is true. That is very true.
Folks, we don't condone drinking and driving or drinking and broadcasting. But here we're trying to provide you with the best entertainment. And that all comes from Vance as he gets more and more into
He's so chatty.
What did I do?
Hey, Vance,
what did I do?
You still see I got root ward right there, right? There's root ward.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. He's always watching over us and judging you.
That is good. I'm glad he's judging me because, you know what? I need to be judged.
Guilty. Guilty. Where were we?
Yeah, Bigfoot. I'm very honored, Shannon.
I was saying that I'm bored by the orang pendek.
Yes,
it's probably going to get me in a lot of trouble, but it just doesn't excite me at all.
Screw 'em. I'm with you. It's another ape. That's not that impressive. When it's 10 feet tall and rip people's arms.
We want the Fae. Bring on the Fae.
We're not mixing stuff right now. You can mix your Maker's Mark with whatever, but we're not. This is not that kind of show right now to take the Fae with the Bigfoot with the lights and the UFOs.
You're going to lose our listeners, man. These people expect science, hardcore science.
Yes.
Right. No, but if no one's ever done this, get out a tape measure and take it up your wall 10 feet. I've done it. I did it way back in the day. And, for it's one thing to say 10 feet. It really is. But when you actually take the tape measure up the wall and you're looking at it, you can, and then you're going, okay, it's tall, 5 feet across, massive pectoral muscles and traps like this, like Jay Cutler. I think the level of humble that would come along with that would be insane. So,
and that's the part you added when you added the width of this massive, because you're not talking about just being 10 feet tall. You're now talking about it being almost half as wide.
Exactly.
That's massive. That's like a buffalo.
Yeah. How do you even, that's what we were, and that swings back to, would you go, let me get my phone out, click? No, that's not going to cross your mind.
Especially if the thing is like charging through the woods, coming closer to you.
It's not going to happen.
No.
If you're
and then you will look at your 9mm going, I don't know that this is enough to even knock this thing down.
I'm going to piss it off. I'm going to piss it off. Oh, look at this little pea shooter. Pew, 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 pew.
Pew. You just pray to God it leaves you alone at some point. Because I don't know very many people that could withstand an attack from a 10-foot tall, 5-foot wide, massive being. Insignificant. You would be completely insignificant to that being. And now, Shannon, in the book, do you kind of have any? What kind of stories do you have that are kind of relative to that? People stumbling upon this gigantic, huge mammoth being.
Yes. So, and this is all a long setup. You guys enjoying the long setup here? It was like 20 minutes of setup. All right,
we do come full circle.
Yeah, I apologize.
Yeah, eventually.
I constantly do that on my show too, and I apologize. So here's another story for you guys. So when this happened, this young man, his name is Chris. He's 13 years old. This is Bear Mountain State Park. And this is, keep in mind, only 50 miles outside of New York. If I'm not mistaken, if you guys have it there, help me. It's north of New York, I believe. So upstate New York makes sense, or woodsy.
Yes. And
he's 13 at the time. He's in summer camps and going out with kids his own age. We've all done it. We can relate to that. So they're going to various places in New York State. They end up at Bear Mountain State Park. He admits that at this time he was, trying cigarettes and he's doing his little quote unquote bad boy thing is what he told me. And this was, by the way, an episode of the show. You can listen to this. Don't ask me what number. I don't know. I never know. So anyhow,
that's okay.
Yeah.
I'll find it.
Yeah, well, we'll link it in the show notes. Sorry, guys. So they show up at Bear Mountain State Park, and it doesn't take long before the counselors are like, oh, we're going to go on a hike. And they start on this hike. And then it's lunchtime, and Chris and another boy decide they're going to go off and have a cigarette away from the group. Now, to do this away from the counselors without getting busted, they go for quite a nice little walk. And they admit they can hear things off in the periphery, and they're kind of going, oh, it's the woods. Who knows? A deer, another person, who cares? Chris goes to light his friend's cigarette, turns all the way around, and sees his fellow summer camper with a look of shock upon his face. And he's like, oh, what's up, dude? You know, what's going on? Kid immediately turns and runs full force back the way they came. So he's gone. So Chris is going, well, crap, what did he see? A bear or something? And he turns. And here's where the 10-footer comes in. And I encourage everyone to do this, because this changed Chris's life, like full on changed his life. I still talk to him to this day. He still will tell you this. He turns around and he's looking at the most massive thing he's ever seen. And it is, he says, 9 to 10 feet tall. He's estimating. He doesn't know for sure, of course. Didn't drag that out at the time. It's 9 to 10 feet tall, 5 feet across, 4 to 5 feet across. And he's 13, and he's about level with, get this, basically its hip area. That's how massive this thing is. If that doesn't put it in perspective, I'm not sure what will. And what he notices immediately is, in one hand, this creature has half of a dead dog. It is the top half. The top with the head, and then the entrails are hanging out of this dog, okay? In the other hand is either a blanket or an implement of clothing. It looks kind of like maybe a plaid, something or other, but he can tell, oh, well, that's man-made. Oh, crap, that's not so good. So he's not wanting to do it, but he's finding himself compelled to do so. He looks up at the face. And the title of this chapter is, in fact, Scarface, because of this. He's got a scar across his forehead and a deep scar across his cheek. And, you know, he says it's funny because all of these things are flashing in your mind. It's milliseconds, but your brain is just trying to soak this in, and it's in shock. And he's going, I wonder how this massive Bigfoot got those scars. You know, is it a hard life in the forest or a big battle with another Bigfoot? Like, he says it's just funny what your brain tries to put together when it's seeing something that it shouldn't be seeing. But all of that came to mind within seconds. He said he looked at the face, he got enough of that, he looked back down, and then finally, and he says this is about 10 to 15 seconds that this is all going on. He finally snaps out of it, turns and runs full force back the way that his friend had gone and that they had came. The entire time, of course, he feels like, what if I'm in mortal danger? What if it's following me? We didn't hear it really come in. It should have made more noise than it did. Again, they just thought it was a deer up there. He's just kept thinking, how can something so big sneak up on us like that? There was no noise. They're out in the middle of, I think it was like 5,000 acres or something. And he gets back to the camp, and his friend is sitting back at the camp, looking terrified, by the way, of course. And the counselor's over there just kind of saying, dude, you okay? Like, what's going on? The kid's not talking. And he admits that they got back on the bus, and he goes, dude, what was that? Like, can we talk about this? And the kid would not talk to Chris at all.
Nope.
And to this day, Chris will tell you, he has spoken to this man. They're grown up now. They're older. This guy will still not talk about that day. And Chris, I'm still in contact with him. Super awesome guy. He said he didn't go back in the woods for years. this changed his perception of what was in the woods and if you were safe in the woods and what your protocols should be if you go in the woods. Like, this changed everything for him. So I bet if you talk to the other kid, he's got an even deeper belief in, screw the woods, I'm done. No more summer camp for me. You know, he probably went home and told the family God knows what. I mean, are your parents going to believe you? Especially, like I said, back in yonder years, whenever it may have been, you're even less likely to be believed. So, of course, the big what of this story is one hand a dog, half of a dog, mind you.
Yeah.
The other hand, what was that? Was that the dog's blanket? Was it somebody's clothing? Like, what happened before he saw this massive Bigfoot? So, and of course, when I heard him tell the story, it wasn't easy for him to get through it. And he still to this day goes, I think about that piece of whatever that is in his other hand. You think the dog was the worst part? It's not. It's whatever the hell else was in his other hand, because you just don't know.
The owner.
Yeah.
You don't know.
No, that's one of those most profound stories. And, you know, from the first time I heard that story from your show, that one gets stuck on the pinboard. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just one of those most prominent stories. Look, something like that is just not a manufactured story. And if you close your eyes and you sit down and you put yourself in his situation and just visualize seeing something like that,
yeah,
I'm sorry, but your life has changed at that moment.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
that's one of the scarier stories in the book.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I have to say, that was originally on Sasquatch Chronicles, because he contacted me and I asked him to come on. So I don't want to, you know, take that away from Wes and SC. Like, that was originally on SC, but Chris and I had, you know, kept in contact for a long time. So he agreed to come on ITF. So,
oh my God, that and Tracy's story on that. Oh my God. I'm sorry, but that probably sits on the top of my list of the most infamous Sasquatch stories is Tracy's story.
I need to get a hold of him. You know what, Vance?
God.
I thought about
there
him a few months
is
ago,
no BS with what came out of that man's mouth. That entire story on how he broke down and is terrified just telling the story.
Yeah.
Wow.
But guess what? Even after he told us that on SC, he was, some guests, as you guys know, they'll stick with you more than others. And you just feel like a kinship, or, you're protective, or whatever it may be. He was one of those people. And I gave him my number and I said, let's keep in contact. I want to talk to you. I talked to him, and if we happen to start to actually talk about the event for whatever reason, and this is not on the air, he's just talking to me on my cell phone, he would start to break down again. We talk about a life changer. I mean, holy crap. God knows, I don't know the episodes of my own show, and I've only had that for 5 years. I don't know what episode that was of a Sasquatch Chronicles, and I don't remember the title that Wes put to that, but we should try to track that down and put that in both of our show notes. Is Tracy's story, because holy crap.
Yeah, and the thing was, it came on at the very end of the show. It was just like, okay, we're done with the show. We'll take one more call. And that was the call that ended all calls. I'm sorry. But, and for those listeners that may not be familiar, Tracy was a magazine delivery personnel in a Sprinter van. And he was traveling through, I believe, Tennessee, wasn't it?
I think.
Shannon? I think it was through Tennessee, but regardless, and I'll just make it as brief as possible, but his van broke a belt while he was delivering at night, and it's raining, there's a thunderstorm. He called his dispatch to say, hey, my vehicle is disabled. I'm pulled off on the side of the road. It's hot. It's the middle of summer. It's 90 degrees. It's humid. And he had a light with him, a flashlight, that he hung in the van just so he could see what was going on while he was waiting for assistance to come out to help him. and he opened up the sliding door of his van so that he could take a tinkle out of the side of the van, and he ended up tinkling on the foot of this creature, and it got pissed, and it stuck its head in the van, and of course, the man's terrified. I don't want to give the entire story away, because when Tracy tells the story, it's enough to make you just want to climb under the blankets and never come out again, because it was absolutely horrifying what that man experienced. And with the thing roaring at him, etc. But I'll have to take a look and find out exactly. I did it a number of times to come up with the episode number, but
I'll help you out.
We should link that in. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
He's got so many now. That was and not to sound trite about his story, but that was one of the ones you're like, that was like gold just trickling in, because and again, not to diminish his personal experience of it. It's just when you get a witness like that and you go, he's not making that up. Like, he's just not.
No. You know what? When I heard it for the first time, and I heard it when you heard it for the first time too, Shannon, because we're all listening to it at the same time. Yep. When he was even 2/3 through that story, I was in tears.
Yeah.
I was, and I'm sorry, I'm man enough to say I was in tears, because I felt the man's stress and anxiety and fear that was going through him. I was so emotionally moved by what he was experiencing with these things terrorizing him. It was crazy.
Yeah, and it didn't, like I said, it didn't stop even off air. He was always just so changed by that experience, and he always just like he hated them. I mean, they changed everything for him. That was the kind of story that he can't even go out and put his freaking garbage out, at night without like checking around, going, well, what's around the corner? What's just outside of the lights?
Right. And I believe Will Jevding asked him the question, what did you attribute its looks to be most similar to? Have you seen any drawings? And he's like, yes, the cover of Them and Us.
Yep.
And I looked it up, and I'm like, if I saw that thing staring at me, no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
no.
Everybody can look that up right now and ask yourself if you would want to see that while you're stranded on the side of the road, just basically inside your van.
Yeah. In the dark of night in a thunderstorm. No. Terrifying.
Big bag of notes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to hijack the show, people, but
yes, you did. You always.
It's what we do.
No, not at all.
It's not at all. Benefit of the program. I get it. I got to listen to the story. I'm unfamiliar with it. I kind of felt like an outsider there. But
Sean, you'll love this.
Yes.
In a bad way, you'll love it.
I'm going to love it in a bad way.
Yeah. Oh, I can see the chat now. What did you just do?
I hit the button.
Oh,
it's Tony. It's my buddy.
Hey, Tony.
It's Sharon. Sharon here. Hi, Tony.
I love this. This is great. There's a whole new dynamic of Sasquatch Experience.
Jose's here. How do you know all these StreamYard tricks, Sean? You need to be my Yoda.
IT guy. Yeah, he needs to be your IT guy. That's what it is.
I love playing with this stuff.
Tony and Jose are here.
Yeah, we've had a lot more in here tonight. Marie.
Earlier, hi Marie. So earlier I hit on my phone the chat, but then it just obliterated everything. I couldn't see you. I couldn't see anybody. So I had to exit out of it. And I couldn't see the chat.
Well, aren't you lucky?
Well, most of the time, yes, because sometimes chats can be shit shows. But it looks like we have a good crowd in here tonight. So
our listeners are professional.
Yeah, David. Hello, David.
David Hickey, a good friend of mine. Another thing, if I can remember how to shut them off. It's great. Guys, this has been wonderful.
Great show, guys.
It's been a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. Beyond the Fray, Bigfoot. And it's not the only book. It's a whole series of books.
Yes.
How many books you plan on doing?
We don't know yet. The more the merrier. Obviously, I need the good people out there to get in touch with me. I would never even consider fabricating a story. I don't have the creative mind for such a thing. I like to read fiction at night, but during the day, it's Halloween every day, and I like to talk to people that have the real stories. Whether it's life-changing or not, it doesn't always have to be the ones that, like Vance was just saying with Tracy. Mine is not quite that dramatic, but sometimes it only takes 5 seconds, and then you have this bug that bites you.
You've had quite a few dramatic experiences for your show too.
Oh well, yeah. A lot of ones that I would classify as no thanks. Especially when it's bedtime. Like I say, bedtime. Don't screw with me. I don't want to be scared in my own house.
The big bag of nopes.
And and just for people that know my show, the Incubus episode with Anne and her children. I may have an update coming for that. I'm waiting to find out because
that'd be good.
As it turns out, it may not be quiet. And it even got written about in Paramalgamation. And I said, the report's good. Things are quiet. It's not quiet anymore. And it breaks my heart to hear that. So there may be some ongoing stuff going on there. And I will try to catch everyone up with that. And I may have John Paul Capice on very soon for that.
That'll be interesting. I love listening to him on the program.
Yeah, he's come out of the woodwork as of late, hasn't he?
Yeah,
he's been doing a lot of live, and
he's been doing a ton of stuff.
Yeah, so he's come out. That's
Shannon, where can our folks find you at?
So beyondthefraypublishing.com is where you can find especially signed copies of the books if you would so choose. I've got plenty of copies here to send to you guys. Amazon.com, of course, is where you get paperback and the ebook. And then, of course, the show is intothefrayradio.com. I am now also on Patreon, if you are so inclined, for all of the bonus content. And, of course, any of the podcatchers, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify.
There you have it, folks. This is going to be the last video chat we do that won't be exclusive to our experiencers on Patreon as well. You're right, Vance? Tissue? That was fun. You okay, Vanny Boo Boo?
No.
All right.
Vanny Boobs.
So yeah, that's where we're at, guys. I'm Sean the Fort Chop Forker. You can find me everywhere on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm my name at Sean Forker. I don't hide behind a pseudonym or a screen name. You can find me. I'm out there, and I'm easy to talk to. If you want to talk, shoot me a message. It happens all the time. I love you. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be doing this. Henry, where can folks find you? Henry? Earth to Henry.
Simply at Henry B. May on Facebook. Henry B. May on Facebook.
There you go. Vance, give them your diddles.
Well, anybody can find me sitting right here. I mean, this is it. This is the paradise right here. This is where I'm found. But you can find me along with our Sasquatch Experience and Super NRML. You can find me at Vance A. Nesbitt on Facebook or Vance_Ned_NRML on Instagram.
I don't have graphics for all of those yet, but be rest assured I'll have them.
That's fine. Nobody will look them up anyway. They're like, that Vance guy is kind of weird, so we don't want to look him up.
Who says that?
Well, we just want to know who the hot girl is. We want to know who the hot girl is.
It's getting a little weird that you call yourself a hot girl. Okay,
and isn't it? I thought he'd be
getting a little.
They're going to start doing a Buffalo Bill thing here if we don't wrap it up.
That hashtag is getting a little weird for you. Okay,
that is. No, I get it. Vance hot girl. Mm-hmm.
Hey, boy, folks, thanks for tuning in and listening tonight. We sure do appreciate it.
Yes, thank you guys.
On Patreon, Sasquatch Experience. Find Shannon on Patreon, Into the Fray Radio. Support great shows, guys. We're not trying to make millions. We're just trying to keep ourselves afloat. And without you, the listeners, there's no reason to do this. And it's our way to give back to you by giving you a lot of extra goodies that you wouldn't normally be privy to. So support us, and we'll support you in some way, shape, or form. We like to do this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, guys.
So much.
Thank you so much.
We love having you on the program. Henry, why don't you take us out, brother?
Thanks, Shannon.
Thanks, Henry.
Y'all be good or be good in it.
There you go, folks. Keep on squatching. Sasquatch Experience, a production of OhMah Media.